Online volunteer matchmaking service Collaborate has been bought by Volunteering New Zealand. To discuss why, Michelle Kidney from Volunteering New Zealand and Kira McCall of Bickerton from Collaborate join us now. Thanks for joining us. First to you, Michelle, what attracted you to Collaborate?
Thank you. So we've known about Collaborate since its inception. We've had some input from an early steering group from a previous CEO. But I guess a key thing that attracted us to it, from my point of view, is the fact that it has been youth developed with community input and seeks to solve a challenge for the sector in terms of which is a very real and known issue around engagement with younger demographics into the volunteering space. So the fact that it was designed by young people and has really great design processes was a key feature for us.
Has that been a gap in your volunteer base, young people?
So we know from lots of different data sources that there's an ageing volunteer workforce for many organisations, and that's a reported issue that comes up quite often. And when we talk with many of our own members and across the sector, youth engagement is probably the number one strategic issue facing the community and voluntary sector in terms of volunteer engagement.
Well, how many volunteers do you have?
Well, so in Aotearoa New Zealand, there's actually, we count them in different ways, but if you look at both formal and informal volunteering, there's 2.5 million of us giving our time in some way to enable communities in Aotearoa to flourish. If you narrow it down and look at organisations, so not-for-profit organisations, there's 115,000 of those, and approximately 1 million people volunteering in those organisations. And if you look at that even in a bit more detail, 90% of our 115,000 not-for-profits are actually completely volunteer-run. So a volunteer workforce is ingrained in the operating model of our community and voluntary workforces. And that's often where we see an ageing volunteer workforce. And there's such a real opportunity in terms of engaging with new communities, new demographics to bring through younger volunteers.
How do you put a value on an application like this?
From my point of view, I guess it's invaluable in terms of the fact that it's been created in Aotearoa, New Zealand. It's New Zealand-based and by Wellingtonians, no less, as well, and through a collaboration of different processes and tech coming together, but using design input from community people from within the community. So actually, I think it's totally invaluable.
Because you've paid for this, haven't you?
We have, yeah.
And that's undisclosed at the moment. But I guess in terms of the opportunity here, you're going to be tapping into hundreds, thousands of people.
That would be the aspiration. I guess the opportunity really for us as a national organisation, we're very small, so but we hold the space in a way that is we work on behalf of the whole volunteering ecosystem. So the opportunity moving forward is to collaborate, excuse the pun, but with national stakeholders who have youth expertise, with our the wider community and voluntary sector who involve volunteers, and also there's a really great infrastructure already on the ground connecting volunteers to community organisations, like so volunteer centres. So there's so much to bring together in this opportunity, and it's really not about the economic value, but actually the opportunity to collaborate and use our position of neutrality to work with others to grow this an opportunity for the sake of the whole community and voluntary sector.
So this is the first time Volunteering New Zealand's had an app type equipment.
We do have another web-based app. We'll have two. One called Involve Me and one called Lead Me, and they're both just they're basically survey tools that enable people to assess where they're at in terms of their leadership journey of volunteers and also with their organisational journey with engaging volunteers. They're quite yeah. So we've got a couple. But it isn't our area of extensive expertise, so we'll be looking to work collaboratively with others.
And how will it work day to day? Will you need to employ people to be able to facilitate the running of the app?
We're going to work through that. Fortunately, and Kira may be able to speak to this in terms of the redesign that they've done before passing it on to us in relation to moving from bespoke technology to open source has made it the back end quite simple to run. But we will be looking in our wider strategy at youth. Internally we want to bring on some youth staff. Yeah.
Okay, Kira, so you've been with the business since it started 4 years ago. Why call it quits now?
That's a really good question, Jonathan. And I think it's critical when building a business to self-reflect and take stock in between phases of growth to see whether you have the right team and the right resources to take it into that next phase of growth. And I think that's quite a difficult call for startups to make. But for us, when we were reflecting around this time last year, our sort of next phase of growth and what we wanted to achieve was to embed Collaborate as part of the national volunteering infrastructure in New Zealand and reach a wider audience and create greater impact. So for us, it was a time to take stock and see, is there anyone else out there in the ecosystem who could achieve that growth, who are values aligned to what we want to do? So acknowledging the work that we've done in the past, but also looking to the future, we felt that Volunteering New Zealand was a perfect fit for what we wanted to achieve.
What do you plan to do now, yourself and the other co-founders?
Well, I think all the co-founders and the wider sort of founding team are all following slightly different paths. So some are more on the entrepreneurial track. For instance, Holly, who is our original CEO, is moving into the sort of regenerative sustainability space and looking sort of at innovation pathways there. Another one of the founders working at a local DHB. Another one of our founders is a lawyer. And myself, I'm also a musician, so I'm releasing an album. So we've all kind of taken different paths. But I know that our experience at Collaborate will inform all of those.
And back to you, Michelle. What's the opportunity in terms of bringing everyone together, young and old volunteers, with this one app?
I guess there's so much opportunity. I think from our point of view, the real opportunity is actually not to rush into figuring out where we're going to go in terms of future stuff, but actually to take some time and hear from a variety of stakeholders how this can best be used and served the wider ecosystem. But in terms of bringing young and older volunteers demographics together, I think there's huge benefit of succession planning, learning from each other, understanding different points of view. They may not all come together in this app, but if they all end up in a space where they're volunteering, that's going to be a really great outcome for Aotearoa.
Yeah, will it help put volunteers, link them with the best companies at the time, the best services at the time? Will it help improve volunteering in New Zealand?
That's an interesting way to frame the question, and I'm sure it will if it brings younger people into organisations, absolutely, and connecting new and diverse volunteers into community organisations. It's really important that when we as an organisation that serves community, that we're actually made up of the communities we serve and the full diversity of Aotearoa New Zealand. So, yeah, it's got to be a good thing.